My name is Devlin and I'm a playwright. Since the meeting at the Abbey in November, I have been wearing my Waking the Feminists badge, and everywhere I go, people stop me in the most unlikely places. The hairdresser, walking through a department store, a woman wielding a powder brush, a guy with a rucksack on the train, all young people to declare, I'm a feminist too. I was very lucky. I started my life as a playwright at the Royal Court, where they had structures in place to serve the play, as the artistic director, Max Stafford Clark, would have it. And they did it for very little money. It was during the first big recession of the 1980s, and because there was so little money, the control was in the hands of the company. That is, the decisions about programming and consent. Recent research shows that right now, more women enter the theatre with plays, while more men arrive at the end of the process with a production. This means that it's a process from which only the men's plays emerge. So we need to put new structures in place to find a way to work in development which favours women. We need to operate laterally across the networks rather than hierarchically, and the instinct is cooperative, not competitive. In order to get beyond gender, you have to take account of gender. To treat someone equally, you have to treat them differently. When I read that sentence somewhere, in place of gender was the word race. But it could also be said about class and generation. The unfinished business of my generation, we have reached our 60s and begun to feel invisible. After the last event at the Abbey, I asked myself, who is the subject of my focus? Who else is being excluded? You see, it's subjecthood, not sisterhood. It's where we begin, and yes, it is political. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caroline Williams. I'm a theatre producer and a feminist. Waking the Feminists has moved like lightning over the last 4 months, but it has also taken decades. It is clear that progress has been painfully slow, but the tipping point is tipped. In 1990, I co-founded a company called Glasshouse Productions. We produced 2 compilations entitled There Are No Irish Women Playwrights, as there appeared to be chronic amnesia at play. Women writers need to be rediscovered, uncovered, reclaimed, republished by specialist presses, given readings. We need to ask why they are lost in the first place, washed away, yet the work of certain male writers seems to segue into the canon, indelible. I could spend this 90 seconds listing women playwrights, but the act of naming shouldn't still be necessary or political. Glasshouse also produced original plays, including 2 written by Emma Donoghue, then in her early 20s. Following her recent hat-trick of Oscar nominations, an article by Fintan O'Toole in the Irish Times entitled No Oscar for Best Supporting Environment stated, maybe if there was no Glasshouse, there would be no Room. Glasshouse can't take credit for Room, but it did claim some space for women writers and theatre artists, as did numerous other independent companies throughout the 1990s. Yet, over the last 2 decades, this space has contracted. The independent sector has shrunk dramatically, and it is clear that the larger stages have not made sufficient room. Having just a small amount of room is stifling many brilliant female artists. They are leaving, they are giving up. You can hear the screech of breaks as their opportunities to make work diminishes. Them's the actual breaks. There are so many barriers facing anyone working in theatre. We have a responsibility not to heap additional ones at someone because they happen to be female. When Leanne Bell received the Irish Times Judges Special Award 2 nights ago, she asked various groupings to stand, including all those who support feminism, and the entire room was on its feet. Best Supporting Environment, we can win this one. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sonya Kelly. I'm an actor and a writer and general annoyer of people. It's a great pleasure to be here today. Rosh Hashanah a few weeks ago asked me to put together a list of helpful do's and don'ts about how to curtail casual sexism in the theatre industry. So with this in mind, I've identified a number of test case situations and phrases used in the professional milieu by way of example. For instance, is that a hammer in your pocket, or are you happy to see me? Is a popular question often asked to female technicians. I would like to clarify today that on 99.99999% of the occasions, it is most likely to be a hammer in her pocket. The possibility of her spontaneously growing a penis and becoming aroused because you walked up to her and said, "Is that a hammer in your pocket, or are you happy to see me?" is equally and oppositely unlikely. If you are unsure of the physical differences between a hammer and the male member, I have brought one to show you. Clearly, a number of subtle and immediate differences spring to mind. While we are on the subject of misconstrued items commonly found in the workplace, the banana is a popular food item also commonly housed in pockets and eaten by theatre practitioners during rehearsals or get-ins and get-outs. Any resemblance to the male member is purely coincidental. If you see a colleague eating a banana during a rehearsal or tech, remind yourself it is 99.999% unlikely that they are practicing a sex act, and to suggest that their boyfriend or husband is in for a treat later is an inaccurate appraisal of the activity. If you are still unclear as to the difference between a penis and a banana, try eating one yourself and see how remarkably dissimilar it is in texture and flavour to a banana. This should quell any further curiosity on the matter. On the subject of semiotically misconstrued items of apparel commonly worn within the theatrical milieu, the flannel shirt. Flannel shirts are not automatic indices to a person's sexual orientation. But sometimes it helps. The correct term for flannel shirt is flannel shirt, not lesbian shirt, or you there in the lesbian shirt, or dyke top, or carpet muncher's uniform. Carpet, as an aside, is quite unsavory to eat and plays havoc with your digestion. I know this because I ate some once when I was on magic mushrooms. In short, a flannel shirt is no indication of the gender of the person with whom the wearer wishes to commune with sexually. That, in the context of the workplace, is none of your business. It is, however, you find yourself attracted to a flannel shirt wearing colleague, which, after all, is only human nature, I'd suggest that you might ask them to dinner, but not to inquire, are you into like dick, because it's really hard to tell. When socializing with female members of colleagues at opening nights and festival clubs, it is advisable not to run a hand down the center of her back to check if she is wearing a bra. This action is not required because women will know themselves if they are wearing or not wearing a bra, and will instinctively recognize this as the sexual subterfuge for what it is. In case you are tempted to perform this action, here is the mystery debunked. Sometimes women wear bras, sometimes they don't. Those are the two options available to women. On and off. If you are unclear about this, try practicing on light switches. The safest place to touch someone you don't know is the elbow. However, do not touch the elbow of a woman if you want to find out if she is wearing a bra. Women don't wear bras on their elbows, perhaps in post-dramatic theatre. On the subject of costume designers, costume fitters, wardrobe personnel, etc., in order to execute the particulars of their brief, i.e. to fit or change a costume, they may be required to touch you. There is, however, no expectation or desire on their part that you touch them back or express any desire to touch them back, or suggest, had you been a certain number of years younger, you might throw them over that sewing machine there and give them a good seeing to, just like that pottery scene in Ghost. So, there you have it. There's a few small tips to help you negotiate the quagmire of gender politically correct social banter within the theatrical milieu. It is a wonderful world we inhabit, boiling over with creativity and passion. We are in the business of creating heightened feelings. This feverishly passionate industry has borne wonderful creative relationships, families, love affairs, adversaries, heartache, babies. At its most positive, the manner in which we engage with each other has the capability to do this, to exalt, mentor, burgeon. At its most negative, it can demean, subjugate, intimidate, and paralyze. None of us are saints, and we can all recall after a night out waking up and saying, "Oh my God, what did I say?" But I would encourage everyone to remind themselves that not every hammer and banana is a dick, and we don't have to be one either. By the way, I am happy to see you. Happy Women's Day.
Hello, my name is Una Mullally, and I am not going to talk about theatre. I'm going to use this opportunity on International Women's Day at this Waking the Feminists event to talk about something else that impacts all of our lives as feminists, as women, as men too. On Saturday night around the corner from my home, my housemate was viciously attacked on Camden Street for being a woman and for being a lesbian. A few weeks previously, I was surrounded by a group of young men on the canal because I had the audacity to go for a jog at 5 p.m. I stood and I shouted while they threatened to beat me with a bicycle seat and throw me in the water. They yelled disgusting abuse at me before eventually dispersing. My housemate Vicky, now with 2 black eyes after being repeatedly punched in the face, wasn't so lucky. Because no matter what you're wearing, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what you look like, no matter where you are, women are open to being attacked on the street, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of having conversations between me and my friends in a pub interrupted when a guy thinks he has the right to invade our space with some kind of shite talk that nobody asked for. I'm sick of tensing up when I have to pass a group of men on a street at night. I'm sick of deciding to say nothing back when a man shouts something at me or my friends for my own safety. I'm sick of holding my keys in my hand so that a hypothetical punch might have more impact if needs be. I'm sick of looking over my shoulder, and I'm sick of harassment deniers. I'm sick of people raising an eyebrow when they think we're overreacting or unlucky. Pick up a newspaper today or any day, or look at any news website any day of the week, and you'll find a litany of rape cases in court, of attacks and assaults, of abuse and of violence against women. And those are just the ones reported that we hear about. And we take that information in every day. We also take in the visual information of the street and its surroundings, the catcalling, the sexual harassments we've been victims of, the dark alleys, the dodgy blokes, the groping in clubs. And they are not all men, but they are a lot of men. If nearly everyone in this room, and I'm sure you have, has had an incident of harassment on a scale from not so serious to very serious indeed at the hands of men, then if I was to stand in a room with mostly a male audience, would a lot of men there have been perpetrators at some point? This is something that men are so incredibly sensitive about, to the point that the conversation shuts down. But we need to open that conversation up, because no amount of street lighting or extra Gardaí or vigilance will stop street violence and street harassment against women. The only people with the power to do that are men themselves. No perpetrator, no victim. This is a country where 26% of women have been victims of physical or sexual violence by a male partner or another man. That violence is not perpetrated by one small gang of marauding men. It's much more widespread than that, and we're going to have to start to be honest with ourselves about that. I know it's hard for women to face up and call out the sexual and physical and verbal violence and harassment perpetrated against us. Perpetrators are our fathers, our brothers, our partners, our friends, and women raise men. It must be hard to unlearn misogyny, and I would imagine much easier not to be immersed in it in the first place. Men need to be included in this conversation, but I'm also sick of mollycoddling. I'm sick of apologizing for not wanting to be assaulted. I'm sick of looking for approachable and innovative ways to allow men to understand that shouting, groping, or beating women is not acceptable. Get on board. And if a man you know has an objection to women asserting their right to safety, if they think or feel or act ambiguously on this subject, then call them on it. Because I'm also sick of protecting men from their culture of violence, a culture of exerting power, of keeping women in their place with threats from microaggressions to straightforward attacks. We're not making this up. It's real, and I'm sick of it, and everybody needs to wake up. Thank you.
Happy International Women's Day, everyone. My name is Katie Holly, and I'm here in a few different guises. Firstly, as a feminist whose heart leapt on witnessing the start of this movement, as a film and television producer who has run my own company, Blinder Films, for coming up on 10 years, as a founding member of the Irish branch of Women in Film and Television, and as a board member of the Irish Film Board. And I'm delighted to have been asked to come here to speak about the experiences and developments in the Irish film and TV industry. I've always loved film. My cousin Vinny made me want to be a lawyer. All the President's Men made me want to be a journalist. Almost Famous, a music journalist. And In the Name of the Father made me want to be a lawyer again. Maybe because of my enjoyment, it actually took a pretty long time for it to dawn on me that the stories I was seeing were overwhelmingly male, or from a male perspective. When I began to think I wanted to be a film producer, one of the things I did was seek out the work and writings of producers I admired. Among them were Christine Vachon and Linda Obst. Once I had set upon it, I don't ever remember feeling that film wasn't something that I should pursue, probably because at the time I had no idea how crazy and demanding an industry it was. But I do know that reading their words and seeing their credits inspired and emboldened me in my own career. I love films because they can express so beautifully aspects of human experience in all their contradictions and complexity, and unite an audience in the showing. They move us, anger us, terrify us, entertain us, provoke us, comfort us. But for so long, we haven't been getting the whole story. A few years ago, I was at South by Southwest with a film, and I snuck away to see the world premiere of a new TV series by a filmmaker I was really intrigued by. It was called Girls. I was literally overjoyed to see characters on screen whose lives were messy and imperfect and uncertain and familiar. It was a couple of years later at the Galway Film Fleadh that the reality of the Irish problem became acute to me. I watched 3 premieres over the weekend. All good films, but none of them reflected in any way my experience. They were all male stories, male perspectives. The female characters were wives, mothers, love interests, daughters. It bothered me, and it motivated me, and it made me look at my own record and my own slate. Only 3 Irish women have directed 3 or more feature films. When I was interviewed by the former minister for my position on the Irish Film Board, I cited equality as one of the issues I'd seek to represent. At the end of our meeting, He said he was delighted I agreed to join. As you see, they now have these quotas for state boards of 40%. As a board member, I want to thank Waking the Feminists for being the catalyst for our own public statement and subsequent plan on gender equality. We'd been discussing the issue for some time and intended to include steps in our forthcoming strategic plan. But the movement put pressure on us to acknowledge the inequality in our industry and in our own record and publicly commit to making changes. We published statistics from the last 5 years, which showed that only around 20% of projects funded had a woman writing or directing. They also showed that not enough submissions are coming from producers like me with women attached, again about 20%. We set a target of 50-50 gender parity in funding over the next 3 years. It's an ambitious target, but Sweden, under the leadership of Anna Serner, has achieved this, and with it has increased Swedish film's presence and success at international film festivals and at their own awards. Last Friday, there was a conference by Dr. Susan Liddy from the University of Limerick, which brought together many of the stakeholders in the industry, including writers, directors, producers, broadcasters, the Film Board, Screen Training Ireland, and the BAI. It was reminiscent in ways of the first Waking the Feminists event, hearing testaments from filmmakers like Marion Quinn, who, despite having had her first feature premiere at the Berlin Film Festival, has struggled for 9 years to make her yet-to-be-realised follow-up. Or writers who just accepted that their work wasn't good enough and stepped out of the industry. The BAI, which has 17 million a year to fund projects, for the first time gathered their statistics and revealed only 19% of their funding goes towards female directors. Both RTE and TG4 admitted that, while they are equal opportunities, they have no formal gender policies in place and no published statistics around gender. These are all publicly funded bodies and they need to be called to account. Since our plan, the Irish Film Board's plan, was announced, the Film Board has started actively engaging with stakeholders. Women in Film and Television has secured funding, which will help us achieve our own goals, and the Director and Writers Guilds have jointly established an Equality Action Committee. I can feel a momentum and a huge appetite for change. This issue is on the agenda in so many spheres, and in the film industry, it's at its noisiest ever. Despite the stark statistics, I'm optimistic. Irish film is riding high right now, and I know that with that there will be resistance to breaking the mould, that we should fund the best, rather than according to gender. But I also know that we need to challenge what's seen as best and find quality in the diverse. Because if we don't, we'll fail to discover Ireland's Lena Dunham, or Andrea Arnold, or Jane Campion, or for that matter, our next generation's Jim Sheridan, or Neil Jordan, or Leni Abramson. And then everyone would miss out. Thank you.
Jericho, Jericho, Jericho.